Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and today we're going to be talking about these Grandstream Wi-Fi phones. Before we get into that, however, if you have not subscribed to Crosstalk Solutions, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. We're currently putting out 2 to 3 videos per week on various tech topics like surveillance systems, voice over IP, and computer networking. So we've been looking for a decent Wi-Fi phone solution for some time. Typically, when we sell customers cordless phones, we're selling them DECT phones, and that's either the SNOM DECT solution or the Yealink W60P, or even the new Yealink multi-cell DECT solution, which has just recently been released. But the limitation with DECT phone systems is that, they're fine within range of the DECT base or within range of, a multi-cell deployment where you have multiple DECT bases. But they're just not as versatile because you do have to have those DECT bases in place for the phones to communicate, whereas a Wi-Fi phone can utilize your existing wireless infrastructure, and if you have a large campus full of buildings, these phones can roam between your access points without having to maintain a separate DECT infrastructure solution. Now, I've tried some phones in the past. I remember there was one from Incom that was just a terrible piece of junk. I did not like it at all. It would always lose its wireless signal, and you had to keep reprogramming in the wireless password, which is a super pain in the butt. And then there's other solutions, such as SpectraLink. I have not personally tried any of the SpectraLink handsets, but I have heard that they are quite a robust solution. Typically, you're going to find SpectraLink handsets in like a hospital environment where you've got a number of those handsets, and it's really not just for, a one-off phone like these Grandstream Wi-Fi phones. With SpectraLink, just to get the first handset, you're looking at upwards of like $1,200 or more. I mean, I think like $1,100 and change is our price for it from our distributor. So, MSRP on those devices is going to be a lot higher. Because, with SpectraLink, you got to have the handset. You got to buy their SpectraCare support contract. You have to buy a charger separately. You have to buy the battery separately. You have to buy the power cord for the charger separately. You have to buy the provisioning cable for the SpectraLink phone separately. And again, once you sort of bundle together everything that you need, the first phone costs, again, something like $1,200 plus. And of course, if you're going to install 10 phones, that price comes down a lot because the price per handset comes down a lot, since you only have to buy, one charger, dual charger stand or whatever. You get my point. It's just a very expensive solution and not the ideal solution for someone who just wants like one Wi-Fi phone. So I bought one of each of Grandstream's Wi-Fi phones. We have the WP810 and then we have the WP820. Now this video is not sponsored by Grandstream. I personally am actually not typically a fan of Grandstream phones. I mean, they work okay. They're just not fully compatible with free PBX, so we don't sell them. And on top of that, the Grandstream PBX systems are just terribly convoluted. They're very complicated to set up and certainly more trouble than they're worth. But I will say that I actually do like both of these phones, and I like them to the point that we will recommend these Wi-Fi phones to customers, and we're going to put them in the Crosstalk store as well. Go to crosstalksolutions.com and click on store, and you can see both of these phones. So let's talk about the specs. We're going to start over here with the WP810. This phone features dual band Wi-Fi. It's got a 1500 milliamp hour battery, and it says that it has 6 hours of talk time and 120 hours of standby time, but of course in the real world that's probably not exactly accurate. This phone also has a configurable push-to-talk button on the side that can be used for push-to-talk, or you can configure it as like a panic button or even a speed dial if you want. It has a micro USB port as well as a 3.5 millimeter headset jack for a headset. You can program up to 2 separate SIP accounts on this, so it can be connected to 2 different servers, and it has this fixed belt clip in the back. By fixed, I mean it doesn't move once it's been on here, but of course you can remove the belt clip if you need to. The WP810 has the smaller display out of these two phones. This is a 1.8 inch 128 by 160 TFT color LCD. And moving over to the WP820, this has a larger display screen. It's a 2.4-inch 240 by 320 TFT color LCD screen. The WP820 has a lot of the same features as the 810, including dual band wireless. It has a 1500 milliamp hour battery, even though on this one it says that the talk time is 7.5 hours with 150 hours of standby. So I'm not sure why they're both 1500 milliamp hour batteries, but one has more talk time than the other one. But I'm just going by what the datasheet says. The WP820 also has this configurable push-to-talk / panic button on the side, as well as a 3.5mm headset jack, and it can handle 2 SIP accounts. In fact, I'm actually using this on 2 SIP accounts. I have this hooked up to this little PBX right behind me, and I also have it hooked up to a Crosstalk Cloud PBX simultaneously. The differences for the WP820 are that it also has Bluetooth 4.2. So this will pair with a Bluetooth headset or a mobile device, some sort of external speaker or something like that. Whereas the 810 does not have any Bluetooth built in. The operating system on the WP820 is Android 7.0. So whereas this is sort of its own little OS, this is actually an Android OS on this phone, and that means that you can run custom Android applications on the display of this phone. Now, I can't think of a use case where you'd want to do that, but it is possible, so I figured I'd mention it. This phone also has a removable belt clip, but this belt clip swivels, right? So you don't need to, it's not a fixed belt clip. If you have it in your belt, you can actually sort of swivel it around a little bit. The problem with this belt clip, and one of the things that I don't like about it, is that it juts off the back of this phone quite a bit. So if you like to, if you're like me, and when you're on the phone call and you're walking around, you like to sort of prop this thing up on your shoulder so that you can be doing something with your hands, this belt clip makes that almost impossible, because your shoulder basically hits right where the top of the belt clip is, which also swivels. So I was, walking around using this thing, finding that it kept slipping out from my shoulder. And so if I were going to be using this personally, I just ditch the belt clip entirely and toss it in my pocket, and then you can hold it much more comfortably between your ear and your shoulder. Another interesting feature of the WP820 is that it supports video calling. And I should say there's no camera on this phone, so it can receive an inbound video call, but you cannot do an outbound video from the phone. But if, for instance, you had a door phone, where, a video door phone, and someone presses a button, it can ring this phone and display the video from that door phone so that you can see who's actually at the door, and then, of course, punch in a code to answer that call. And here, I'll do a quick test right here with this Yealink phone. This is the Yealink T58A with a camera on top. I'm going to dial from this phone over to the Grandstream WP820, and we can say accept. And as you can see, there is 30 frames per second video happening on the WP820. So pretty cool, but one thing that I did figure out is if I dial from the WP820 over to the Yealink phone, so from the Yealink to this phone, video, no problem. From the WP820 over to the Yealink, if I dial 401, I can answer the call here, and it looks like it's starting the video, but it actually never does start the video. So I don't know if that's just a limitation of the phone or if I have something configured incorrectly, but yeah, I was never able to get that working. If you happen to have this phone and you get it working where you can make an outbound call from this phone and see video on the other side, from the other side, let me know down in the comments below, because I would love to figure out why this isn't working. All right, so next let's talk about roaming between access points. So I took this WP820, which is mainly the phone that I have been testing with, and I got on a phone call and I walked around my house. Now, your mileage may vary on the wireless roaming because a Wi-Fi phone is incredibly susceptible to the Wi-Fi network that it is a part of, right? If your Wi-Fi sucks, the Wi-Fi to this phone is gonna suck. Right? So you have to have a strong wireless network, or at least a reliable wireless network, for this phone to function effectively. Same goes with your firewall. if you have situations where the firewall is timing out the registration of this Wi-Fi phone, or even your access points are timing out the registration of this Wi-Fi phone, it'll do some funky things. Like, for instance, it'll lose its registration and not ring on inbound calls. So I have an Edge Router 4 as my primary firewall. I also have 4 access points in my house. If you think of my house like a rectangle, I have 1 access point in the attic at the top center of my house, and then on the bottom level of the house, I have 3 access points, 1 in my garage, 1 in my living room, which is an in-wall HD from Ubiquiti, and then I have a beacon repeater, also from Ubiquiti, over on the other side of the house. So the 1 access point that I have in my attic can actually cover my house just fine, but I'm a wireless nerd, so I like to have a lot of wireless access points. When I was on a call, I walked back and forth upstairs from my house, then I went all the way downstairs, and then outside and walked all the way around my house and then back upstairs. Through that process, I jumped wireless access points 5 or 6 times. And you can tell when you jump wireless access points because the phone beeps while you're on a call, and oftentimes there'll be about 1 second or so of voice cutting out. Either me speaking to the caller or the caller speaking to me will be cut out as it jumps from one wireless access point to another. But it was totally usable. So even though there was those little bit of cutouts, it might have cut out a word or 2 out of someone's sentence, but I could still carry on a conversation just fine while walking around the house and jumping between my various access points. So that was really cool, and that is one of the main concerns that I had with this phone, is how well will it jump between access points? And I'm actually glad to report that it seems like it works really, really well. Again though, 100% dependent on your wireless network setup. So it worked very well in my home, but again, your mileage may vary. As far as the interface of these phones, they're pretty standard stuff. Here we have the interface of the WP820. We can see our account status, network status, some system info. And then as far as configuring this phone for use with a SIP server, it's as easy as you would expect, right? This phone is in the Crosstalk cloud devices, right? So you can basically have it auto-provision through the Crosstalk cloud. It is also in the free PBX endpoint manager for auto-provisioning through the free PBX endpoint manager. Or you can set it up manually, and to set it up manually, basically all you need to know is the SIP server IP address, the username, which is typically the extension number, and then the SIP password. Once you have those 3 bits of information in the phone, it should register successfully to your SIP server. There are a bunch of other settings in here, such as video settings for the WP820. They have the options for the push to talk or multicast, the side button. What are you doing with that side button? You can change out the wallpaper on the phone if you like. It does have OpenVPN settings as well, so if your free PBX or other PBX server has OpenVPN capability, you can upload an OpenVPN to this phone and it will be able to VPN into your server. There's some other cool features like gesture control. So for instance, you can set it so that if you flip the phone upside down while it's ringing, it can reject that call, or it can reject that call but send an SMS to the caller. And then here's some of the button customization stuff that you can do, including changing out the multifunction button on the side to be push to talk, a panic call, mute or unmute the call that you're on, and then also it can be just a straight up speed dial. This phone can also connect with an LDAP directory. For instance, if you have Microsoft Active Directory and you want to load all your Active Directory contacts into the phone. And you can also do call recordings right on the phone itself. So all in all, I am actually really impressed with both of these Wi-Fi phones from Grandstream. The cost on these phones are $114.95 for the WP810 and $30 more, or $145 for the WP820. When it comes to my clientele and what I would recommend, I'd probably recommend the 820. It just has a better feel in your hand because it's a little bit bigger. It's got the bigger display screen. It has the Bluetooth 4.2 for pairing a Bluetooth headset if you want to do that. and it also has the video calling capability. So for 30 bucks more, in my opinion, it's worth it to just bump up to the 820. But if you're looking for just a simple Wi-Fi phone and you don't need the Bluetooth headset, you don't need any sort of video calling, you don't care if it's a little bit smaller than the other one, then this is actually a really good phone as well. So good, in fact, that I am going to include both of these phones in the Crosstalk store. Link down in the description to both of the phones if you would like to check them out. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. My name's Chris with Crosstalk Solutions, and thank you so much for watching.